Welcome to our 5th Immigrant Voices storytelling event, which we have held in collaboration with Writ Large since 2017. Tonight, we have a small, socially distanced audience of family and friends at the 3rd Street Center in Carbondale, Colorado. But we are joined by a larger live streaming audience from throughout the Roaring Fork Valley and beyond. I would like to begin by appreciating our generous sponsors. Thank you for stepping up at this difficult time. In particular, I would like to highlight our partners. They include Alpine Bank, Aspen Mountain Chalet, Aspen Public Radio, the Aspen Times, the Town of Basalt, Crawford Properties, Eagle Crest Nursery, Footsteps Marketing, Rimkus Real Estate, Timberline Bank, Umbrella Roofing, U.S. Bank, Was Campbell Rivera Johnson and Velasquez, and Jean Campbell and Patrick Morrissey. Many of you who are watching tonight have already donated to English in Action. Please know that your donations of any size are welcome and needed. If you are able to make a donation and you are watching this on our website, EnglishInAction.org, just scroll down for information on how to make a gift. Your donations go directly to supporting our programs, which help adults learn English by matching them with volunteer tutors. All of our programs are currently up and running using social distancing and the magic of Zoom. And we are matching new volunteer tutors living in the Roaring Fork Valley with adults who are able to meet virtually. For more information on how to volunteer, please visit our website. At English in Action, we foster cross-cultural friendships. One of the ways that we do this is by sharing our stories. While it is a difficult time to work on building community, it is more important than ever that we do. In fact, it is essential that we meet people who we do not know, who may have grown up in different life circumstances, and who may not think the way that we do. Tonight is an opportunity to do this. You have the opportunity to celebrate our differences, as well as all that we have in common. Several of our storytellers tonight are English in Action students, several are not. I feel blessed to have met each one of them, and I am very excited to hear their stories. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our curator for this evening, Alia Howe of Writ Large. She is our partner in delivering this event, and she has coached each of our speakers this evening in the art of storytelling. Born in the United Kingdom, Alia is an internationally recognized dance and performance artist. She has taught at the State Ballet School in Athens, Greece, and at the Laban Institute and the Lincoln Center Institute in New York City. Many years ago, she moved to the Roaring Fork Valley to raise her daughter, and 9 years ago, she founded Under Alia's umbrella, which includes the Writ Large Storytelling Series. I give you Alia.
Thank you, Laura. Welcome, everyone here in the room and those of you who are watching online. It's such a privilege to work here with the team at English in Action, and I want to talk a little bit and echo what Laura has already said about storytelling. We humans are a storytelling species, and truly a community without a narrative to tell doesn't survive, it doesn't cohere as a community. And having a heartfelt narrative makes all the difference to an individual, a family, a community, a country. And it's the secret sauce that holds us all together, making us effective, resilient, and hopefully happy. When I became a citizen here, reciting We the People just brought me to tears. And here, the stories will reveal universal truths about how we have so much more in common than we do have differences. And thank you, Ricardo, for coming up. I'm going to hold you up here for a little more before you go, so breathe deep. Thank you, English in Action, for valuing personal stories and building a community that listens to each other. It is terrifying to get up and speak in public. It is one of the top fears on the planet. And can you imagine getting up here and sharing not a prepared speech about something abstract, but sharing your life, something so close to your heart in your non-native language. And because this is such an act of courage, those of you who are here in the audience, I want you to make noise for the storytellers. So if someone passes an exam in this and struggle to pass it, please applaud and go whoop whoop. In fact, let's practice. Can everyone applaud and scream, yes! Louder, yes! And then can I hear a groan in case something just breaks your heart? And storytellers, when you hear that, that means breathe, take a pause. Let people connect with their heart as you are with yours. And any other noises you want to make, I would like you to respond with the spontaneity of a child. And I think I'm going to stop there. I'll add in between each storyteller, but I want to introduce you to Ricardo. And let's see if my device will let me into your history. So this is Ricardo Sabala. Ricardo was born in America, but grew up in Mexico. He holds an architectural degree from the Universidad de, I just asked how to pronounce this again.
Michoacana.
Thank you, in Morelia, Mexico. And it's no wonder he and his family were living the dream in Mexico, because back in Ricardo's home state, Michoacán, are UNESCO World Heritage Sites dating back to 1541. Morelia, where Ricardo went to university, there's a pink marble historical downtown, and it's home to a Baroque cathedral finished a century after it started being built in 1744. This city was the first to sign the Latin American Constitution in 1814 during the Spanish-Mexican War of Independence. I truly hope that English in Action starts a travel tourism business, because after I listen to all of the storytellers and their homelands, I want to go with them, guided by them into their home country. But please, let's put our hands together and welcome Ricardo Sabala to his story.
I was 12 years old when I realized that I was an American citizen too. Something shocking to discover at 12 years old. I was born in Great Lake, California. My parents were field workers on a walnut farm. And at 6 months old, they decided to return to Mexico because the abuelitos were getting sick and they needed to be close to them. So they did, and they never returned to the United States. And I grew up in Apatzingán, Michoacán, close to Morelia, in a normal Mexican family with ups and downs. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings, but I'm the only one with both Mexican and American citizenship. I have 2 passports. They only have 1, and I'm proud. They never returned to America, and Spanish, Español, became my mother language. And elementary years passed by, and moving into middle school, that's when I discovered my gringo birth certificate. And now, before you get mad with me, gringo, it's a word that we use to describe a white person from the United States speaking English. Vox Populi says that we use that word during the Mexican-American War just to tell the American Army, green, go home. True or false? I don't know, but we use it. After some questions to my parents about that birth certificate, they told me that I was born in Greeley, California, and the journey to Mexico. And like I said, that was a shocking discovery for me. I was 15 years old, and I just finished my second grade of middle school, which is 8th grade, and I earned my first trip to El Otro Lado, first time in America, and it was a horrible experience because of my lack of English. Couldn't understand anything that they were telling me, and at the border, I was intimidated by immigration because they couldn't believe my story. Like, an American citizen that doesn't speak English? We don't believe that. And I was detained and separated with my aunt from the rest of the family in Laredo, Texas, for a few moments or a few hours, can't remember. After the confusion, my trip, like I said before, my first trip into the United States continued. Once in my uncle's house, everything got worse. I got in fights with my cousins because they were making fun of me, but the way that I was trying to learn and speak this new language, something new for me. They use mean words, and I feel dumb, and I feel stupid. Words are mean. And at that point, my first trip to America, I just wanted to get over it. I just wanted to go back to Mexico. And I just wanted to forget about this certificate, United States, and its stupid language. I just wanted to go home. During my last year of middle school, and thanks to destiny, I had a good teacher, English teacher, that encouraged me to learn the language. Like a teenager, I was like, yeah, all right, whatever you said. I don't need to learn that. I'm good in math, I'm good in social, I'm good at sports. I was in a better shape. And thank you. And I was like, even la clase de artísticas with dancing and painting with subject was a priority for me, not English. I didn't care about it, to be very honest with you. Didn't care about English. But when I finished my second year of high school, my family decided to send me to the States to learn the language. And I did. And I moved again to Fort Worth, Texas. That was my only year in high school in United States. As an ESL, or English as a second language, I had good grades. Even the fights at home with my cousins were over because I was able to help with math and social, and they were teaching me English. And like I said, I had good grades, but being alone, being away from my family in Mexico was hard. I was homesick, and I returned to Mexico, lindo y querido, after just 1 year. But that year, as a high schooler, improved a lot my level of English and my confidence, myself. I was able to follow the songs on the radio without reading the lyrics. That was a shocking too for me. And when I went back to Mexico, the same English teacher invited me to his conversational courses. He told me, like, you should come and practice. I won't charge you. It's going to be free. And so I did. And have you noticed that I never lost my Mexican accent? And I'm very proud of it. Just to let you know, for the records, okay? And as a plus to that class, my first grade crush, now my wife, was part of the class. And a couple weeks later, we started dating. It was summer of '96, and we're still together. I was able to attend college, went to the university, got my degree in architecture. During those university years, I was able to come to the States, work, earn some money, pay my college, and practice the English. And I did many jobs, you name it, housekeeping, landscaping, anything that was able to give me some money to pay for my college. And when I earned my degree, I was hired as a site construction supervisor in Mexico. Alejandra and I got married in 2005. Richie, our first son, was born in 2006. Alexa came 3 years later, and I was living the American dream in Mexico, believe it or not. It was happy for me, but then suddenly lost my job because of the economical recession, 2008, that started like 2 years earlier in Mexico, and I had to move. Alejandra and I decided that coming to the United States would be the best opportunity for this new family that we were growing up, and I did. We applied for her residency, and I had to leave them in Mexico. Took me some years to finally bring them here. So my new trip, my new journey into this new life took me from Morelia to Colusa, California, to the same walnut farm that my parents worked a couple years ago, decades ago. And from Colusa to Las Vegas, where I was able to find a job to prove to the immigration system that I was capable of supporting my wife's process. I was so happy. But a couple months later, recession hit construction, and I lost my job again. And I wasn't able to go to the economical limits that they were asking, and I had to restart her application after a whole year, start all over. It was hard. It was sad for me. At one point, I was so close to call immigration to cancel everything and return to Mexico. Came to this valley in 2010, destiny, maybe. Now that I met Elvis, maybe God. A friend of mine from my hometown went to Vegas, and he was like, you should come to Colorado. There is no economical recession in Aspen. Rich people, they don't care about it. There is always something that you can do to earn some good money. And now I see you laughing. That means it's true, right? He wasn't lying to me. So I came, 2010, and I found a job at the Aspen airport cleaning cars. Winter season, hard. Eventually, I made it into renting cars. And it was perfect for me because I was able to prove immigration that I was making money for my wife, and I was taking off season to go to Mexico and visit my family. I had the 2 kids already with me. Finally, summer of 2012, I was able to bring my wife and the 2 kids. Yay! Thank you. My son started first grade at Crystal River Elementary School here in Carbondale. And I became a volunteer on my days off because I needed to learn the system because I wanted to help my son with the school. Because as me, he was a new English learner speaker. And I did. That whole year, I was in that school, and I got an invitation from a local nonprofit organization to join Padres Mentores. But I couldn't do it because I was the only one working at that moment, and I sent Alejandra, my wife, and she's going to tell you that story in another time, not today. I had that great job in Aspen, but I had to work weekends, and I was losing time with my family. So I decided to quit that job. I got my GED diploma and applied for a position at Carbondale Middle School. I became a paraprofessional where I've discovered this new passion in me that is called education. I was helping kids and helping teachers at the same time. But the honeymoon with this new job, I think is ring. The honeymoon with this new job lasted only 2 years. I had to leave Carbondale Middle School because $1,600 a month is not enough to raise a family of 4. And I leave. But I found a job with Mountain Family Health Centers where I became the lead dental assistant for both Glenwood and Basalt clinics. Bravo. Gracias. But education was still kicking in me like, you should go back to school. You should go back to school. And I did it. 2 years ago, Carbondale Community School gave me the opportunity to join the special education department. Also, I became a bus driver, which I love to do, and I'm helping kids and teachers. 5 years ago, and thanks to my mentor, Mr. Kenny Titler, I became a teacher assistant with Colorado Mountain College here in Carbondale, where I help, thank you, helping people to obtain their GED and a better education. And so I guess my whole speech right now proves that if you want to succeed in this country, sooner or later, you need to speak the language. So make it happen sooner. Take advantage of English in Action and many other organizations. And improve yourself. Muchas gracias.
Oh! Thank you, Ricardo. So now you have some inkling of what a privilege it has been, what a gift it has been for me to receive these storytellers' stories from their lives. And I now know that you're going to be experiencing the same. Our next storyteller coming up, what a story. Arabella Marmolejo is originally from Colombia. Arabella has been a student with English in Action since 2007. A dedicated volunteer in our community, she serves on the English in Action Student Leadership Committee and is an active member of the Immigrant Voices project. She has raised 2 daughters here in the Valley. One of them received a full scholarship to the University of Notre Dame. Arabella works as a preschool teacher in Basalt, and in her free time she enjoys dancing, reading, and hiking. A student of the natural world, Arabella is amazed by both nature's mysteries and the resiliency of the human body. Let's put our hands together and welcome Arabella Marmolejo. Keep speaking for a moment. Is the mic turned on?
As a little girl, I like to observe ants. Yes, the tiny little insects. I will watch them fascinated, how orderly they are, how they were following each other. I used to do that while I was waiting for my mom from her job at the hospital in Turbo, Antioquia, Colombia. At the rear of the hospital, there was a mortuary. And sometimes I like to scare myself going there. If I saw a dead body, I will run frightened back to the place where I was playing with the ants. That was my strange routine every day after school while I was waiting for my mom going back home. One day, I remember my mom brought home a box with plungers. It was my new toy, squirting water. I think these experiences led me to choose my first career in the medical field. My childhood was nomadic. I have to be in different places, depending who was taking care of me. When I was a second grader, I moved with one of my sisters to Rio Chocó, in Colombia, of course. But for some reasons, my sister couldn't stay with me, and she left me with her friend Beatriz. At the end of the school year, I had to go back to my town. I remember that night. It was dark, crossing the ocean. The water was turbulent, it was scary. When we arrived to the shore, nobody was waiting for me. I have to walk by myself home. I learned to be self-sufficient at an early age. When I was 13, my mom and I moved to Barranquilla, listening my sister call. But we didn't have a stable place to stay. Then my sister and my mom had to ask for places to sleep. One time, we had the opportunity to stay in a school, but that school has sewer problem. But still, we had to stay there because at that moment, we didn't have another place to stay. My mom liked to walk around, and she found out that some people were selling lands. And she told my sister to buy one of those lands. And my sister borrowed some money from her employer and got somebody to build a room where we have to be 5 people. Later on, my sister got more money, and she brought one of my brothers to build a real house. Yeah, we were more comfortable. And my sister was a single mom. Then I stayed with her. Looking back, it was fine for me because I didn't have to be back and forth in different places. Then my mom came back sometimes, and she used to tell me, Arabella, you need to study to get ready for your family when you get yours. Another thing she used to tell me was, you need to keep focused. She means like not studying and having boyfriends at the same time. Then I had to choose. And always I kept that something in my mind. And I had a dream going to college. At the end of my high school, in order to go to college, I had to take an exam. And I felt very, very sick. But I had my dream going to college, then I forced myself to take the test. But guess what? I have a dream, but I didn't have money to pay for college. And I was thinking about to get a loan, but my mom didn't support my idea because she didn't want me to take a debt and have to pay for it after finishing my college. I think everybody has an angel. And my sister Anira, who is in the audience, was my angel. Yeah? She offered to pay for my college, and I went and I studied to become bacteriologist for 5 years. After I finished my college, I had to do my obligatory social service. Then, in order to do it, I had to get a place to do that. Then I moved to Chocó, where I met my husband. After finishing my social service, I went back to Barranquilla, and my boyfriend at that time followed me, and I went back with him to his hometown. I stayed there. I started my own laboratory, and later on, I started a partnership with the dentist. I had my 2 beautiful daughters. I had my husband. My life was there. I had everything there. Meanwhile, my sister Anira, who was the person who built the house, our first house, was applying for my visa to come here. At the beginning, I didn't want to come because, I had my life over there. But I was thinking, in case my mom or my sister needed me, I will be able to come. On the other hand, I wanted to offer more opportunities for my daughters. Then I came. When I came here, I didn't have any job, and I didn't know the language. And I asked my sister, what can I do? I need a job. And she said, I think you can work as a preschool teacher. And she helped me to find a job. I feel grateful because, in addition to my sister's help, Sarah Burrow gave me the opportunity to work as a preschool teacher without any English. Also, I prayed for an affordable place to live in Aspen, and I got it, where I have been living since then. My both daughters have had great opportunities living in this valley, and both now are in college. and I am an empty nester. And I don't know what will be my next step. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arabella. And something interesting for me was I found out that Arabella's angel, Anita, lives up the end of the street to me. And I found out about this in COVID time, so I can't wait to get to know you a little bit more, Anita. And what an amazing family of sisters of your mother and this whole journey here. Thank you for sharing. Wow. Our next storyteller, Elvis Estrada. He was born in Guatemala and has lived in the United States since 2018. Do we have Guatemala in the house? He is 29 years old and worked in a bank before coming here. He is passionate about music and plays in 2 local worship bands. In 2019, he met his tutor, Dan, and since then they have become fast friends and meet regularly to study English. Elvis lives by his favorite Bible verse from Proverbs 16, verse 3. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. Elvis, thank you.
Thank you. I want to talk about my faith, the beginning of my faith. When I say this, I remember like 19 years ago when my dad was here in the United States, working, making money to pay a lot of bills of my family. And with my mom and my sister, we were in Guatemala. And I remember we went to the church and we were praying for my dad. And I remember my praise was, God, give me to back my dad. I miss a lot my dad. And in the same time, my dad was praying for God, give me a good job in Guatemala. God, give me a job near to my city. And God responded us our praise a few days before. And that moment was the beginning of my faith. Now, I am 20 years old. And that moment, always I remember when I pray for something and God respond me. When I came here, I came to New Jersey. I was right there for 6 months, and I had a bad work. One day work, the other one no, the other yes, the other no. And I remember for the 20 years ago when I prayed, in that moment I prayed again, God, can you give me a good job, another place, a good place? And in 1 week before, my cousin, and she lives here, called me and she told me, if you come here in Colorado, I will give you work because she has a big company. And for that reason, I came here in Colorado. It was difficult for me to come here because I came in September and start to the winter, snowing, the cold. I didn't accustom for this weather. Was very hard for me. And I didn't have a car. I was every day in the home, work in the home, work in the home, and I was sad. I was missing a lot my family, and today I miss my mom, my dad, and my sister. And it was difficult for me because I needed to start to learn about a new job, putting the drywall, carpenter, a lot of things can you do here. I didn't know because in Guatemala I worked for just in computer in some bank. But the other thing I missed a lot was my band because every Saturday I play my guitar with my band in a lot of activities, the church or wedding or 15 years birthdays. And I was very happy with my band. And here changed all things. But God gave me a good opportunity to play my guitar in some church here. And I remember the 20 years ago when I prayed to God and God responded me. And the same thing, God, can you give me some opportunity to play again my guitar in some place? And I find some church to play my guitar with other band. And now I am blessed. I am blessed for God because I have a good work. And in this month, October, is my month because October 9 was my birthday. And God gave me a big gift. And he gave me my new truck. Well, it's not new, but it's new for me. And I am very happy for this because God surprised me every day, every time, every year. Just when you open your eyes, it's a good gift. It's a big gift if you don't see. And in that moment, I was very grateful with God. And other thing for because I am here in the United States is for my dreams. I want to buy my land, and I bought my land. I done my first dream in Guatemala. My other dream is to build my home. I think in 3 years I will done my dream. Other dreams I had is I wanted to be translator for the missionary in Guatemala, but I never to imagine it in the future or today. I am talking in English and talking about the blessing of God gave me in my life. Always I was thinking, I want to translate the English to Spanish, but never the thing is, you will talk in the future, talking in English and about God. And I done other dream today. And I very grateful with God. And well, I want to finish to tell you, God is the center of my life. And everything I do and I will do is for God. And I want to say some verse. The verse say, Jesus asked him, can you trust God? For those who trust him, anything is possible. Mark 9:23. Thank you.
Wow, Elvis, thank you. And when I first started talking with Elvis, I learned about his journey coming over here and what he is doing here with his life. He started taking photographs because he enjoyed taking photographs. And then all of a sudden his friends are saying, those are beautiful. Would you take pictures of this graduation, of this event? And he is now taking photos for people on the weekends. And then he began designing with friends logos and marketing things that he's working with friends in Guatemala or businesses in Guatemala, helping backwards and forwards develop people's logos and marketing designs. This man is creative. He is up to so many things. But if you want to be washed in his passion and his devotion for God, go listen to him play music in the band at the Cristo Roca Church next to City Market in Newcastle. Thank you, Elvis, so very much. This is warm food for a snowy night, right? Our next storyteller, Berenice Forest. She's originally from Chihuahua, Mexico. Berenice moved to the Roaring Fork Valley in 1987 at the age of 5. She is married with a 1-year-old son and is the assistant director at the Basalt Regional Library. In her free time, she enjoys active outdoor pursuits, reading and watching movies with her husband. She is currently inspired by Ruby Bridges, an African-American civil rights activist. As a little girl in kindergarten, Ruby desecrated an all-white school in New Orleans. Berenice admires the courage and conviction of activists like Ruby and those who came before and after her. Let's put our hands together and really welcome Berenice Forest to storytelling.
He holds me in his arms on a rooftop, my father. Bright lights all around us. In the distance, fireworks. They look like little stars, they look like little flowers blooming in the night sky. It's magical. My parents, Manuel and Hilda, are factory workers in Ciudad Juarez. Every morning as the sun rises, they wake me up and they carry me across the street to my grandmother's house. Every morning, to stall my mother, I ask her for otro besito, another little kiss. But I really like spending time at my grandmother's. She has this incredible garden with tall trees, beautiful flowers, that I get to run around in all day with my dog. At that time, my father is building our home in Ciudad Juarez. He has siblings here in Colorado, and he thinks that if he comes up here for a year and works, he'll be able to move the construction of our home. A year later, he returns. A short time after that, my mother says to me, Bere, we are moving to Colorado. But before we go, we need to get you warm clothes because it's really cold there. I remember she took me to the shopping center and she got me, among other things, a gray and burgundy sweatsuit. I remember taking the bus from Denver to Glenwood Springs. We arrived pretty late in the evening. One of my uncles picked us up and drove us from Glenwood to Basalt. On the drive down, I remember as a 5-year-old looking out the window and thinking how incredibly dark it was. In Ciudad Juarez, it was always bright, and here it was just oddly dark. And I remember seeing stars, so many stars. It was magical. I think the challenges for my parents and I were very different. I think it was the toughest on my mother. She was living in a country that she did not speak the language. She was living in a mobile home with about a dozen other people. And aside from that, she was feeling very lonely. But more than that, she was having to depend on people who she would otherwise not have to depend on. And I think that took a toll on her pride. My younger sister, Ruth, was born a year and a half later, and at that time she said to my father, we either find a more permanent place for the 4 of us, or it's time we return to Mexico. Luckily, my father was able to find a little mobile home, just a few lots from where we were living. Growing up in Colorado was a truly carefree childhood. When my father wasn't working, he loved fishing and hiking. I remember one day he took us to Twin Lakes. My mother made us lunch that morning. It was a sunny day. My sister and I got to play on the sandy beach. My father fished all day. And I think that day was so special because my father worked so much, and that day we really got to enjoy each other's company. Growing up in a bicultural household can get a little tricky. You are growing up in the American culture, but your parents want you to continue following the traditions of their homeland. You often feel like you are straddling 2 different cultures. We have a saying for that in Spanish, ni de aquí, ni de allá, not from there and not from here. And oftentimes, because of that feeling, you feel that you have to prove yourself, that you have to act a certain way to be American, or you have to talk a certain way to be Mexican. But what does it mean to be American? What does it mean to be Mexican? For me, it's memories and traditions. Every Christmas morning, my mother and I make tamales. I love listening to my aunts and uncles share their stories of growing up in Mexico at family gatherings. And I feel so fortunate that I was able to return to Mexico every year. My parents are from a small town in southern Chihuahua named Jimenez. My parents moved to Ciudad Juarez to work. and we would visit my maternal grandparents in Ciudad Jimenez. And I always looked forward to visiting my grandparents, but I also really enjoyed being in Jimenez. I felt like life is slower there. I feel like in America, oftentimes we are chasing after that next shiny thing, and it felt like in Jimenez it was about family. People took the time to greet one another and take the time to acknowledge one another. And when I left, of course I missed my grandparents, but I also missed that slow-paced life. In Colorado, my parents always worked manual labor in restaurants, housekeeping. And after 32 years, their bodies were worn down and they were tired. 2 years ago, my father retired, or came of retirement age, and at that time, he decided that he was going to go back to Mexico. I am incredibly proud of my parents for everything that they've accomplished here in America. They put me and my sister through school, and I was so happy that they were going to be able to enjoy their retirement in Mexico. But I was also incredibly sad. At that time, I was pregnant with my son, Bruce, their one and only grandson, and I really wanted my son, Bruce, to grow up experiencing his grandparents nearby. My son Bruce is growing up in a truly bicultural household. My husband's from the Midwest, but one of the things that unites my husband and I is the importance of family. And we are truly trying to instill in our son the importance of family regardless of distance. Before my grandparents passed away in Ciudad Jimenez, they gave their house to my parents. This is the house that I would visit every year, and I have such wonderful memories of my grandparents. I remember sitting on their couch, watching novelas. My grandmother was an incredible cook, and I remember having these long conversations with her after a delicious meal. In their home, I felt so welcomed and so incredibly loved. After 2 years, my parents have finally finished remodeling their house, and it's everything that they've ever wanted at home. I look forward to my son, Bruce, my husband, and I to visit them. And I am so excited for my son, Bruce, to create memories and feel so incredibly loved by his abuelitos the way that I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Berenice. And if you haven't been yet to the Basalt Library, gosh, it's as beautiful outside as it is in. They have incredible selections of books and movies and diverse programming for people of all ages. Thank you, Berenice, for everything you do at Basalt Library. As we are coming up to our last storyteller of the evening, I do want to remind you, everyone who is listening online and here in the room, to please make your donations, however small or enormous, to English in Action for their incredible programs that they run and support of helping English-speaking immigrants learn how to speak the language and partnering them up with tutors. So, whoops, I just closed that out. Let me find where I am. Here we are. Wow, our last storyteller for the night is Tobius Rimkus. Welcome. Tobius moved to New York City from Germany in 1999 and met his wife, Dinah May. They came to Colorado in 2012 by way of Houston and Miami. With a background in hotel management, Tobias now works with his wife in their family company, Rimkus Real Estate. Outside of work, Tobias is a passionate outdoorsman. He enjoys road and mountain biking, alpine skiing, hiking, golfing, and gardening. And when indoors, Tobias enjoys reading, spending time with his wife and canine children, and of course, traveling to support Dinah at her bowling tournaments. Thank you, Tobias. I'm excited to hear your story.
I was standing here on the Immigrant Voices stage last year for last year's rehearsal. And one of the feedbacks I received was how interesting my story was in regards to European immigrants coming here to this country, not having it as easy as one would think they have. I'm back here this year because I missed last year, to just slightly modify my story and tell you a little bit about like the European history and background of my family, my upbringing in Germany, and then how I ended up here in the country. Grandma used to say, we are Ostpreußens, which means East Prussians. And growing up, it really didn't mean much to us. It was a little bit confusing because we were actually Germans, we thought. So let me take you back. My grandparents lived in East Prussia in the beginning, and it's a region that has a long, long history. The Prussian Empire was actually established in 1773, just 3 years before the independence of the United States from Great Britain. So that's the region that then became part of the German Empire in 1871. And that's the country, actually, where my grandparents were born. Granddad was born in 1904, and my grandmother was born in 1905. A war took place, as you all know, at the beginning of the 20th century, and the Prussian Empire was actually divided. West Prussia became part of Poland, and East Prussia, where my grandparents lived, was an exclave to Germany. So it was like a Puerto Rico, probably. That's the closest, right, to the United States. That's where they grew up. They met. They got married, so they lived in East Prussia, right? Second World War happened, yes, that's right. But before the Second World War happened, my grandparents got married and gave birth to their first child in 1938. My aunt was actually born. And then just 6 years later, my dad was born too, and it was 1944. Another war took place, as you all know, in Europe. And my granddad, even though it was an exclave to Germany, he was drafted, and he needed to go into the war too. He ended up fighting on the Russian side and ended up in captivity. So he was in Siberia, and grandma basically at the end of 1944 was in a really difficult situation with her family. The children were there, my dad was a newborn, and she needed to leave the region. It was a time in history where about 2 million Germans needed to actually be relocated to the other side of Germany. And my grandmother left everything behind. So they left their land behind, they left their farm, their livestock, and anything they possessed, and made their way over 3 months to Germany in a horse carriage. And like history and the memoirs of my grandma say, it was treacherous, it was bitter cold, and it took them 3 months until March of 1945 until they made it to a small town called Mettmann, very close to Düsseldorf. So that's where she was. Like they survived, like my dad survived, and in January of 1946, my grandfather knocked at the door at the house. So he was one of the fortunate ones who was actually released, and he made it back, reunited with his family. Wow. So amazingly, refugees, right? A refugee family. My family built a house again, and it I just was reading the memoirs again, it only took them 12 years to rebuild a house and start their next chapter in Germany. So I am German. I grew up in Germany. I grew up in my grandparents' house. My dad got married to my mom. They moved into the house, so we had 3 generations there. And it was a really, really modest upbringing. I was fortunate. I went to high school. I also went to college, or we call it Gymnasium, in Germany. And then I was one of a very few who didn't actually continue going to university, but I decided I wanted to actually do an apprenticeship. So I ended up working. An apprenticeship for anybody is a 3-year program which is government supported, and that provides support so you actually get ready to become a professional. And I chose the profession of hospitality. So I did this, 4 days of work, 1 day of school, and graduated from that. I went to university as well, got my degree in hospitality management and in marketing, and then I was 27 years old, and I was ready to come to the United States and get some international experience. Here is where my story is really, really different from the story of my grandparents, as things changed so much for Europeans. That is correct. I didn't come on a horse carriage, neither did I come as so many friends I met here in the United States through a desert or an ocean as a refugee. I was very, very fortunate. I had a job lined up, I had a visa lined up, I had a hotel job, so I had a quarters to stay. I stayed in the hotel when I came. So I actually took a flight from Frankfurt to Newark Airport, landed there. I had a limousine taking me to the hotel, and I felt amazing. I felt great. I checked into the hotel, so it was like a temporary accommodation, and I turned on the television, and it was amazing. I had never been to the United States. Baseball, football, the local news, the international news, anything. But I was in shock, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I didn't understand a single word that was spoken. I learned English in school for more than 10 years, but I learned British English and not American English. So I was petrified. And ironically, in addition to that, I actually worked in guest services. So I was the one people called to share their problems with in the hotel. It was devastating. I always had my flight ticket though in my back pocket, so I got a round-trip ticket to actually get here. So it was November, I think, and I was always thinking back. I was like, maybe if I screw this up, I can always go back. I didn't screw it up, so I'm proud of that. 21 years in the hospitality industry, and it has been amazing. It's an industry, especially here in the United States, that could not live without our immigrant population, as you all know. And that's the same here in Aspen. It's the same for the skiing company. It's the same for so many places here in our country. I made a decision with my wife in July of this year to leave my beloved hospitality industry behind and start another chapter with my wife. So I joined our family business, our real estate business, and we're finding homes for families, selling homes and remodeling homes and so on. The amazing thing for me this summer was that I was working again with a very, very similar population, a similar immigration population. And I was in construction and in landscaping and so on. And I can only say it's amazing to see how dedicated our immigrant population is, and how this can-do attitude, regardless of what the background and the education is like the immigrant population makes it happen, which is unbelievable. I have 2 additional thoughts in closing that I briefly share, and one goes back to my grandparents. It's only 75 years. which seemed like forever when we were young, and now being 48, 50, 70, 75 years is really not that much anymore. But it was only 75 years that my grandparents became refugees. And I was very fortunate to actually come to this country and have had a really, really good run, which I'm grateful for. Above it all, though, in closing, there is so much I learned. We all have in common being here and being out in the audience. So much more we have in common that can possibly set us apart. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we feasted on stories from people's lives. It is such a gift. And I would like to invite everyone in the audience, please, to stand, get to your feet, and I am going to invite the storytellers to come back in and do one more bow. And I would like you to make as much noise as you can, and we'll just feel the love coming from the live streaming audience. So first up, I would like to ask Ricardo Sabala. Oh! Arabea. Mamalejo. Bravo. Elvis, Estrada. Berenice Forest. Oh! And Tobius Rimkus. Bravo. Aren't they magnificent? Well, in closing, we'd all like to thank the 3rd Street Center in Carbondale for hosting this event. And we'd also like to thank Chris and Austin Tribble and the Versatile Productions crew for filming and live streaming this event. And again, donations to English in Action are welcomed and deeply, deeply appreciated. I wish you all a good night. Thank you.